So the other day, we discussed Sidney Powell flipping on Donald Trump and getting a plea deal. Well, now we have another one of Trump's henchmen flipping on him. So the Associated Press says lawyer Kenneth Chesebro pleads guilty over efforts to overturn Trump's 2020 loss in Georgia. Yes, we can pause and reflect for a second on how Chesebro is the funniest last name of all time. I've heard some people say like Chesebro or something. Wrong. We're going with Chesebro because that's too perfect. Democracy in the U.S. was almost ended by a guy named Chesebro. Stranger than fiction. Okay. So they say lawyer Kenneth Chesebro pleaded guilty to a felony on Friday. A felony. Remember, Sidney Powell, I think it was like 6 misdemeanors that she pled down to. And she also, as part of her deal, has to flip. Similar thing for him. So he pled guilty to a felony on Friday just as jury selection was getting underway in his trial on charges accusing him of participating in efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election in Georgia. Chesebro was charged alongside Trump and 17 others with violating the state's anti-racketeering law, pleaded guilty to one felony charge of conspiracy to commit filing false documents in a last-minute deal. With prosecutors agreeing to dismiss the other charges, his plea came a day after fellow attorney Sidney Powell, who had been scheduled to go to trial alongside him, entered her own guilty plea to 6 misdemeanor counts. In Chesebro's case, he was sentenced to 5 years probation and 100 hours of community service, and was also ordered to pay a $5,000 fine and restitution, write an apology letter to Georgia's residents, and testify truthfully at any related future trial. The 2 guilty pleas, along with a third for a bail bondsman last month, are major victories for the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. They allow her to avoid a lengthy trial of just 2 defendants, which would have given those remaining a peek at her trial strategy and to whittle down an unwieldy pool of defendants. All right, so that's really an interesting point that hadn't occurred to me, that if this had gone to trial with Chesebro and Sidney Powell, the Trump and the rest of his people would have gotten a look into what her strategy is, and they could prepare to defend for that. Now, with these being settled, that's not going to happen. They continue, unlike Powell, who was involved in strategy talks with the former president after the election, the indictment does not indicate direct contact between Chesebro and Trump. This could potentially limit any information he could offer prosecutors that would be helpful to them in their case against Trump. Chesebro's lawyer, Scott Grubman, said it is entirely up to prosecutors whether his client will be called to testify against others in the case, but he would be surprised if it happens. Asked if Trump should be worried about any testimony Chesebro might offer, Grubman said, quote, "I don't think so." Chesebro, who lives in Puerto Rico, was initially charged with felony racketeering and 6 other counts as part of a wide-ranging scheme to keep the Republican president in power after he lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. The indictment alleges Chesebro's coordinated and executed a plan to have 16 Georgia Republicans sign a certificate declaring falsely that Trump won the state and declaring themselves the state's duly elected and qualified electors. Grubman said after the plea hearing that his client has been inaccurately described as the architect of some plan to overturn democracy. He said the plea contradicts that. Well, quite to the contrary. One of the things that they have Chesebro dead to right on is he was one of the guys in the internal emails that was referring to the fraudulent elector scheme and the fake elector scheme. His words. And so they have him on that. It seems like they put him in a corner where they were like, look, you're going to go to jail and for a pretty long time unless you make a deal with us. And the fact that as part of the deal, there's still a felony that he's pleading guilty to. I don't know, man. It leads me to believe that not only is Sidney Powell going to flip on Trump, but also Chesebro is going to flip on Trump. And then, look, this also sets a precedent. Now, how many of the other co-conspirators are going to go, you know what? All right, I'm going to go ahead and flip on Trump too. Look, I think he's in serious trouble. I think as soon as you had that civil trial in New York, as soon as they found he was guilty of fraud or liable for fraud, and he's going to lose his business licenses in New York, and he's going to pay a fine of up to $250 million. They're deciding right now exactly how much it's going to be. That was a harbinger of things to come. And I think in the Georgia case, Fani Willis dotted her I's and crossed her T's, and it looks like Sidney Powell's going to flip on him. Looks like Chesebro's going to flip on him. And if everybody points the finger in the same direction, remember this was a RICO trial, normally used to go after the mob, but this is like a mob-like structure where he was at the top and he was really calling the shots. If everybody points the finger at homie, he's in real trouble, man. Real trouble. So we'll see what happens, but if you're reading the tea leaves right now, they don't look good for the big guy. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.